Hi, I'm Jacob, and today we're going to talk about the Pi1541 Zero. This is a Commodore 64 accessory that uses a Raspberry Pi Zero to emulate a 1541 floppy drive that would normally be used with a Commodore 64. And you may have seen this type of thing before using a full-size Raspberry Pi and as a standalone thing. But you might notice this is a cartridge. This also includes the Epyx Fastload cartridge, and it's just integrated into the unit. And what is useful about that is that it lets you load your disk images off of the 1541 faster than normal. The 1541 drive is notoriously slow, so this will allow you to load it faster. And what's interesting about this setup is that the Raspberry Pi can pull its 5-volt power supply from the Commodore 64. So you don't have to have any external power supply for your Raspberry Pi. You just plug this into the cartridge port and you plug this cable into the side of it, and then you plug the end of that cable into the floppy drive port or the serial port of your Commodore 64 and switch it on, and now you're good to go. You don't need any other cables. So this is a really good all-in-one solution that, especially if you're carrying your Commodore 64 around a lot, maybe you're showing friends and family about it, this makes it super easy just to set it up. You don't need a separate power supply for the Raspberry Pi. You don't need separate cabling. It's just really great. So you may notice that this is in a case. It does not come with the case, at least mine did not. I bought this off of eBay, and it came as a bare, well, not a bare circuit board, it was already populated. And you just had to provide your own SD card and Raspberry Pi Zero. And it even came with the cable too. So the design for the 3D printed case is going to look a little bit different than this one, because this is one of the prototype kind of models. The designer of this board told me that this was kind of kickstarting the project. They made some prototypes and they wanted to sell the prototypes off to keep going. So let's take this out of the case and take a closer look at it. Okay, so let's take apart this case. So I 3D printed this just in PLA. You know, you can see some gaps here and there. This is just from my ability to print accurately. I do have a new printer now. I have the Ender 3. I still have both. I mean, the Wanhao Duplicator i3 that I was using to print this still works. Anyway. So yeah, there's the inside. And if I remove All right, so you can see the Pi Zero sits here at the bottom, and the rest of the board, you can see here's the cartridge portion right here, and there's a 5-volt line that let's see, I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, I think this is the 5-volt line over here. So you can see that comes up. Oh, that's actually ground. Yeah, so there's ground. And 5 volts should be, let's see, I'm trying to think of okay, so that's 5 volts right there on the Raspberry Pi, that red. So yeah, it's one of these pins down here. So yeah, basically it draws the 5 volts off of the cartridge connector here and powers the Raspberry Pi using the 5 volts. So yeah, it's pretty clever. It also has power LED, also has a reset button, which is very very convenient. And it's got all the buttons you need for like going up and down menus and folders and things like that. And then this connector, actually I had to move this connector from this side of the board to this side to get it to fit in this case, because I think there was kind of a difference in version between the one that I bought and the one that this case was designed for. And also the designer was really responsive. I had an issue with clearance in this case, and they actually made a modification to make these little cutouts of these of the curved bits here, so that you can see it cuts off flat. So he did that so that it would fit in properly. So another thing you do have to do is remove the retainer clip for the camera ribbon cable, and it's not that hard to do. You just kind of pop it straight out this way. But it's not that hard to do. It does feel a little bit permanent. It's not too bad. I think you can snap it back in. But if this is going to be dedicated to being a Pi1541, then it shouldn't matter that you're popping that off. And plus, a Pi 0W is like $10, so it's not. This is a W just because it's what I had laying around. But you know, a Pi 0 is 5, a Pi 0W is 10. Depends on where you get it as to what the actual price is. But yeah. So yeah, then to put this together, you shove the Raspberry Pi Zero down here in the bottom. It's a little tricky to get it in there, but you can do it. And then you put these spacers in here. These are actually still connected to the screws on the bottom, because it's a pain to get this thing back apart. And then you take the GPIO pins there, and you just line it up, and there you go, and then press it down. Just make sure you don't press on the LCD screen here, or the OLED screen. Yeah, there you go. And then you put it back together. So yeah, once you have it in the case, then you take your SD card, which has been loaded according to the website instructions, and you pop it in, and it's pretty easy to get out. It's got like a cutout there for your finger. So then you hook up the cable. You may notice it only goes one way, the way that he designed the cable. And the one if you get one of these, it might be different. But if you plug it in, you might notice this little X here. This is because this is where there's no pin, because it's actually a 6-pin connector, but there's only 5 lines on this cable. So this X is where the missing pin is. And I have this here because I made my own cable, and I don't have one of these connectors, but I do have a DuPont connector, which is compatible. It just isn't keyed. So I have to know which one of these is the empty pin, so I know which way to plug it in. So yeah, plug this into your Commodore, plug this into your serial port, and you're good to go. So let's go to the demo. So we have the Pi1541 Zero Epyx Fastload cartridge combo plugged into the back of the Commodore 64. The serial line is going into the back. This is the video. Nothing else is hooked up. And let's switch it on. So when you turn it on, the screen comes up, but then this is the interface for the 1541. If you've never used a Pi 1541 before, this may be new, but yeah, basically, let's see, this is down. So yeah, I can go to different games or whatever, and then I press the rightmost button to go in there, and if I load up, let's say, Yeah, let's do Galencia. So that's loaded up into memory, or it's loaded up into the Pi1541, and there's the screen. I apologize. Recording a CRT is kind of difficult at times. So you can see that it says Fastload there. And that's important because that means that you can use the Fastload feature. And one of the features you can use is just hitting Commodore run stop. And on the normal Commodore 64, that would run. That would tell you to load from a tape, or tell you press run on or press play on your tape. But what this does is it actually just goes in and runs the. Turn this down. So yeah, it goes and loads and then runs the first program on the disk. So yeah, and it just yeah, it loaded it up and there you go. It loaded up very, very, very fast. So like that would normally take like a minute to load, but it's you saw how fast it was. It was crazy. So yeah, that's how easy this is to use. It doesn't require any other power adapters or anything. So that was a pretty quick look at the Pi1541 with the Epyx Fastload cartridge included in it. Again, it's a very useful tool to have, just very convenient, especially if you're on the go. The Epyx Fastload cartridge portion of it works with any other floppy drive you have. If you want to hook one up as device number 9 or something at the same time, you can do that. This does not have serial pass-through, so this would need to hook up to the other device, and then the other device would need to hook up to the Commodore. And I actually made a longer one of these cables so that I could use my printer with this at the same time. So anyway, I really like this tool. If you're interested in getting one of these, I'm going to leave links in the description below. If you have any comments about this, maybe you hate this, maybe you love this, maybe you have other tools that you use that work better for you than this would. I would love to hear about them. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope to hear from you.